Swimming is one of the most technical activities you can do and one of the most difficult to master. To swim well, which is to swim as efficiently as possible that both minimises the drag in the water and maximises the propulsion, can take a long time to truly master in the water. However, your stroke technique is something you can practice anytime you want, and you don't have to be in the water to do it. In this video tutorial, we're going to explain how to practice elements of your swim stroke at home. We're going to start by explaining the few simple things you're going to need to get your practice at home setup organised. From there, we'll run through some tips and tricks to analyse your swim stroke and achieve a positive result from the 4 key swim stroke stages. You can run through all the stroke stages in detail, as they will explain what to do and what to look for when practicing at home. Or you can simply click ahead and move straight to the stroke stage that you want to work on the most. Finally, we'll give you some actions you can take to the pool for your next swim to make the specific techniques adjustments you've identified at home and make them a standard part of your swimming in the water. So here's how you can get prepared to practice your stroke and technique in the most efficient way possible, from home. The items you're going to need are a bench seat or a gym flat bench, masking tape, a mirror, and a camera. First up, you need to set up your bench seat or your gym bench on the floor in your practice area. If your bench seat doesn't have any cushioning, then you can use a pillow or a longer cushion to place under your chest to make it a little bit more comfortable when you lay down. Once you lay and test out the bench seat, make a note of where your shoulders sit over the floor. At this distance, use your masking tape to place a straight line on the floor, starting about 1 metre in front of your shoulders and as far back as your hips, and do this in both sides. These tape lines will be a guide for us to help practice keeping our swim stroke relatively straight, ensuring that a hand doesn't cross over the centre line of our body, or that the hand and arm doesn't move too wide. Both of these things can slow your swimming down. Next, we want to place some tape across the floor. Although this isn't a scientific position, we will be using the line as a guide point to see how your arm is progressing towards a good catch position. By the time your hand reaches this line, we want to see your new swimming mantra that plays in your head coming true. That being fingers before wrist and wrist before elbow, creating that high elbow position ready for the pull phase to maximise your propulsion forward. Now practice laying on the bench seat, making sure that you're centered on the bench and your head and neck are over the end. If your bench seat isn't too high, you can use one of your hands as a support to keep you balanced and your shoulders stable. Our stroke practice will only be focusing on one arm at a time. By using your mirror, moving it to different positions from directly in front of you or placing it to the side, you'll be able to see from different angles how your shoulders, arms, elbows and hand are positioned through the stroke movement. From looking at this and slowing your movement down as much as possible, you can make the necessary corrections to improve your stroke technique. To take a more advanced approach, use your camera to video yourself performing the swim strokes from different angles and from both arms and sides. By slowing your stroke down, videoing the movements, and then watching them back on your computer, it is by far the most effective way to note challenges and make improvements. Let's look at each stroke phase in greater detail. The hand entry stroke phase, as we've talked about in other tutorial videos, is, we believe, the most important stage to master first. So what are our measurement points to see if we're doing well? Starting after our recovery, we need to see our shoulder driving the elbow forward, meaning the forearm and hand are relaxed and literally swinging through. Hand entry then starts from this point where the shoulders, elbow and hand are roughly aligned. If at this point your hand is leading the elbow, then you're not driving the arm forward from the shoulder. Focus on going back, driving from the elbow and relaxing the forearm and hand to simply swing. A technique drill at this point is to stop the arm at the high point and literally swing the forearm and hand before moving forward to the hand entry. Practice this motion very slowly first, practicing swinging the forearm and hand forward and back 2 or 3 times and then extend the hand forward. As you get this motion smoother, you can very gradually increase the speed. At the start of the hand entry phase, the shoulder, elbow and hand are roughly aligned, and that the motion forward to hand entry still finishes with fingers, wrist and then elbow. If we summarise these key points, you can try and repeat them in your mind as you practice. There is elbow first, relaxed hands, arm aligned, forward momentum, fingers, wrist, elbow. So what difference might you see between this at-home practice and swimming in the water? Because we're performing the movement slowly, we can see in our at-home practice that the forearm and hand can be perpendicular to the ground. This is our friend gravity playing a role. When we are swimming and our forward motion arm is much faster, the swinging of the forearm can change. However, in reviewing me swim in the open water, you can see that the speed of the arm motion has my forearm and hand swinging higher. So long as your forearm and hand is relaxed and my elbow is leading the motion, then this is okay. That at the start of the hand entry phase, the shoulder, elbow and hand are roughly aligned, and that the motion forward to hand entry still finishes with fingers, wrist and then elbow. The next stage is the catch phase, the first stage of our propulsion. So what does a good catch phase look like? A good catch starts with our hand and arm extended from the shoulder, with our hand extended out just under the surface of the water, about 10 centimeters or 2 to 3 inches. As our arm starts to come down as part of our stroke, our focus turns to our arm and shoulder rotating and ensuring that our elbow points outward, away from the body. It's this rotation that allows you to bend the arm at the elbow, and then by rotating the shoulder forward slightly, you can create that high elbow, or vertical forearm as it's also commonly called. If you use tape as markers on the floor, as explained in the earlier Getting Prepared segment, then this is a good time to test our stroke against these guides. When practicing your catch phase, watch how your hand moves from the full reach position through to the catch. As you rotate your arm and shoulder so that your elbow now faces out, away from the body, and you bend your arm at the elbow to create the vertical forearm position, watch and ensure that your hand follows a relatively straight line and matches that of the tape and the ground. Your hand moving a little either side of the tape is okay. The focus to good technique is to not allow your hand to move too far across your body and cross an imaginary center line. And you don't want your hand going too wide from the body. Both of those movements can significantly reduce your ability to apply force and propulsion forward. If you're performing these movements well, then the next marker you should look for is the tape you placed across the floor, around your forehead position. Slow your movement down. Watch and target to have your forearm reach that vertical position with your elbow bent, and have this done by the time your hand reaches that tape line. If you're able to do this, then you're maximizing your propulsion. We all have different levels of mobility and movement in our shoulders and arms. So if your arm isn't perfectly perpendicular to the floor, or your position is a little further back than the tape, then this can still be okay. Our goal is simply to get as much vertical position as our body simply allows. The more you can do, the better for your propulsion. But what you can practically do, or capable of doing, is enough. So to remind ourselves of the key stages of the catch phase, we can remind ourselves by saying these words as we practice from home. We focus on reach, rotation, bend elbow, fingers, wrist, elbow, straight along body. And the next phase and strongest part of the propulsion forward is the pull phase. In this stage, we start where we left off from the catch. That is, with the right level of body rotation, fingers to wrist to elbow, and hand moving straight down the line of the body. Provided we have our hand entry working well, and our catch phase has created a level of high elbow or vertical forearm position, then our pull phase is relatively straightforward and the least technical phase. This is where our big muscles kick in. Provided we have that ideal position leading into the pull phase, then all the larger muscles of the lats, the back, the chest will engage and propel you forward efficiently and with more power. Our key technical elements to observe are twofold. Firstly, that you maintain a vertical forearm right through to the end of the pull and the recovery phase starts. Extending your hand right to the hip or just past it. Remember the tip I gave you in an earlier tutorial. So the tip is to tap your hip with your hand as it comes through. You'll feel where it is and you'll know if you've extended all the way. The second technical element relates to our tape lines. To get the most propulsion, you want your hand and your forearm to move backwards in the most direct motion to your hip as you can. So to remind ourselves of the key stages of the pull phase, we can remind ourselves by saying these key words as we practice at home. We focus on vertical forearm, straight along body, push past hip. The final part of the stroke is the recovery phase. Your recovery phase is the arm and hand exiting the water after the pull phase. Our focus here is efficiency, that is, our efficient use of energy and our muscles. The recovery follows the exact opposite movement of our hand entry phase. At the end of the pull phase, and our hand is pushed all the way past the hip joint, our arm starts exiting the water and leads by the elbow. Our sequence is now elbow, wrist, and then finally the fingers to exit the water. Your focus is on bringing the elbow forward and not the hand. We know that the hand is attached to the arm at the wrist, so as the upper arm and elbow come forward, they will simply pull the hand with it. A relaxed forearm and a relaxed hand are your focus points in this movement. So finally, let's remind ourselves of the key stages of the recovery phase. We can remind ourselves by saying these words as we practice at home. We focus on hands past hip, elbow driven exit, loose wrist and hands. So that's it for this video. Practicing at home may seem an unusual thing to do for swimming, but if you want real value for time invested, this is by far the best use of your time. A small amount of time invested here, once a week for the next 4 to 6 weeks, will see a great improvement in your actual swim performance. So enjoy. We'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to like and subscribe.